It's always like, all right, let's go back to who I used to be in that ordinary world before I went on this pathway of adventure. So have you noticed the same thing? My name is Mike Fallat. I own the #1 book creation service for entrepreneurs known as Dream Starters Publishing, and I want to help you bring your story to life in a book so you can use that book to generate leads and attention for your business. Contact me today. Welcome to another episode of $1 Million Stories, where we get to interview authors from all over the world. You know, I love talking to authors because they have the courage to take their thoughts, their ideas, their lessons, stories, put it down in a book and share it with the many, ultimately changing their legacy and destiny in the process. And if you're out there and you're looking to write a book, check out dreamstarterspublishing.com. We can help you out with wherever you're at in the process. And if you have a book that's already done and you want to generate leads with it, check out bookmarketingcrm.com. And guys, you are in for a treat because this person shares my sentiment on how important it is to write a book, okay? So I hear the same stuff over and over of why people can't or shouldn't. I'm sure she hears the same things. So we're going to have a great conversation on why you out there listening, whether you're starting a business or you've already done some incredible things, no matter where you're at in the process, you should write a book. The one that we're talking about today, are you ready for this? Is this easy to remember? Start writing your book today. I mean, you know what this book's about. And it's a step-by-step plan to write your nonfiction book from first draft to finished manuscript. We have the author with us today, Morgan Guest MacDonald. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Mike. I'm super excited. Such a huge honor to be here with you.
Well, let's start off with the genesis of this book. If you can give us a quick little rundown of why you wrote it, and then also maybe a quick little background on where you come from and how you got where you're at right now.
Yeah, well, I love telling the story, but I especially love telling the story to you and your community, Mike, because I feel like if you and I had met earlier, I might have been like a case study for you. Because really the way that you talk about using books is exactly how I ended up using my book. So I started as freelance writing coach and book editor. I had been in academia. I was in a program to get my doctorate in sociology. Thought I was going to be a professor, kind of go that route. Got into the program, realized I'm a little too entrepreneurial to really fit in these boxes that academics want. And so I left.
You're talking our language, by the way. Yeah, that's great.
So I left after the master's. I was like, thanks, great experience. I'm gonna, go find something else to do with life. But I loved working with, other folks in the grad program, even faculty, on their writing, their papers, their articles, their dissertations. Like I really found that to be fun in a weird way. And so I decided, well, I'll try this freelance thing. So went out to my network, got referrals for projects. And at first it was just like emails and blogs and articles and dissertations and the whole gamut. You got words, I'll edit them. And eventually I figured out, wait a second, people pay based on what they value. So they're willing to pay only X number of dollars for me to edit an email newsletter, but they're willing to pay a lot more if I edit a book. My skills are kind of the same, but let's target something that's a higher value. So I started working with folks on books and just figuring out a little bit of a system, a little bit of a process, and realized I want more clients who write books. So maybe I'll do what I'm encouraging other people to do. I'll write a book. So that was kind of the genesis of start writing your book today. I wanted it to be super clear what it was about. It's funny because people use it as like a taunt for other folks. So if there's I've gotten so many stories of someone who says, I got your book as a gift because my spouse, gave it to me for my birthday and said, now it's time, write that dang book. But it was the beginning of really growing my business. Before I published the book, I had maybe 100 people on an email list. It was referral only. And I was able to use that book to get out in front of more groups and just get more awareness around folks knowing that I help people with books, put lead magnets in the book, which we can talk about, and started growing that business. It's 7 figures now. So we did something right.
Wow, very nice job. Congrats. Getting out of school, never looking back, becoming more entrepreneurial. I have this phrase. This is what I live by. Think like an entrepreneur. If you could do that, you can win in any situation. And I don't think the school system is teaching this philosophy. So you were able to break away from the chains and really apply your skill sets and passions to something that really is changing people's lives, and I commend that. Anyways, you have 1,900 reviews. I don't know how you did it. That is insane. Really nice job on that. I would assume that there are many reasons you hear of why people don't write a book. So I hear ones when it comes to imposter syndrome, clarity on usage of the book, and I would assume most likely you're hearing the same things. But what do you hear in regards to of like the most, and how do you battle that, or how do you help them overcome it? It seems like in
Yeah.
your book, especially in your preview, you talk about the myths, and I think many people buy into those myths. Therefore, they say, well, I'm not successful enough. I'm not a billionaire yet. I have not done enough to really change the world. So why would I write a book? So those are the simple ones. What do you hear?
I want to put a pin in the reviews because I think that I could share a couple of things that we do that would be helpful for you and for your authors, even if they've already published. So we'll put
Ooh.
that for later. Little teaser. Stick around, folks. So the the myths. I ended up starting the book with the myths because I really wanted people to know that they're not alone. They're not weird. They're not unusual, right? And so, of all the thousands of authors that I've worked with, almost always the very first conversation is helping them just to confront the reasons that they haven't done it yet. There are lots of reasons why they want to do it, but there's inevitably a few reasons why they haven't. And they're going to be individual to each person. I think that any of us could dig into them, but just some typical ones that I see that I do, start the book off with is, the myth that authors have a special God-given, divinely inspired talent that enables them to put words and phrases together. We think about, oh, someone sits down to write a book and it just flows and they just write a lot. For most people, even who do write a lot, the first draft is hard. It is messy. It doesn't make sense. It's choppy. It's incoherent. It sort of morphs and evolves into a different book along the way.
Yep.
Like you sit down and you're like, I don't even know what I'm going to write about. Or you think you know what you're going to write about, and then you start writing and you're like, wait, I'm confused. Is that what I want to say? I'm not sure. And so like that is the mental internal experience even of people who write a lot. So if you sit down and you feel like you're confused and it's not coming together the way you want it to, perfect. You have the exact same experience as anyone else who's writing a book. Another myth, authors have a lot of free time. Not only the famous authors, like if you dig into famous authors who, the John Grishams who are a lawyer, the Danielle Steeles who are raising kids. I mean, even a lot of, your Malcolm Gladwells, they had full-time jobs already
Mm-hmm.
with writing their first books. And even if you publish a book successfully, guess what? You're going to be marketing that book. So you're going to always be writing your books in the margins of time. And I talk to folks about once you really get going, you can write something like 1,000 words an hour. We're talking about a 50 to 80 hour project at the end of the day to write a book. This is a season of life, and we're going to squeeze it in early mornings, late nights, weekends, a week away, wherever you can find 40 to 80 hours. That's what we're going to kind of work with. We've
Great.
got a couple more. Do you want to comment? You want to jump in on anything, Mike?
No, I think what you're saying is spot on there. The first draft is a mess. What's keeping people from getting started? They want it to be perfect. Perfection is subjective, but that first draft is like a sculpture, and then you tweak it, and then you refine it, and you basically get more clear as you go. It's very much like a journey. It really is, because your thoughts, they come out of your head, and we do a lot of ghostwriting with our company. So ghostwriters will do an interview process with our clients. We'll put it down, and our goal is 75% of the way there, right? We want it to be close, but not, we'll never nail it in the first draft. Many people think that the first draft should be like, oh, 95, 98, 99%. No, you basically get it somewhere where you really, really add in maybe the intricates to the story, some emotion, the way you speak when it comes to transitions of sentences. But getting something done is everything. Jordan Peterson says the way you become successful in life is you create a bad first draft in anything, whether you're building a house, whether you're speaking on stage, whether you're writing a book, doing a podcast. Getting something done poorly is so much further than the person who doesn't get anything done.
100%. Yeah. And what's that saying? If it's worth doing well, it's worth doing poorly at first. Right. That's
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. It's true of anything. And so we will improve over time, but we've just got to start, and I mean, to be totally frank, like although this book sits behind me, I have not read this book in years because I can't, because it's been since 2015. It's been 9 years, going on 10 years. I would probably rewrite the heck out of this book, not because anything is,
Right.
not because it's fundamentally changed. I mean, the principles are still exactly the same principles, but I would have different ways of talking about it now. And so to some extent, like you're never, it's never going to be the perfect end all be all book forever. It's going to be the book that you need right now for this season of life, and being okay with that.
Well, I always say that the reason why you need to do a book in such a short amount of time is because it should be a snapshot of who you are at this very moment. The longer you draw it out, you change, you morph, you transform, and all of a sudden you'll look back on chapter one if it's 9 months or 5 years in, and you're like, wait a second, doesn't even make any sense. But what's done can be used. And that book, even if there are typos in it and issues and things you would say way better nowadays, have opened up doors for you, got you on stages, made connections, ultimately helped other people write books. So, I always think, and this is my way of phrasing it, all right, if your book helps one or two people, you've done your job, right? You are serving the many, for service to the many leads to greatness. So your stories and lessons have helped someone transform. And a great writer is not about telling people their ideas. It's about transforming other people's ideas and lives, right? So if you can transform one or two people's lives, you've done it. So I think that's where they need to put their heart. And you talked about what they value. I love that phrase. People pay for what they value. When people write a book, I think many people start off with the legacy aspect. They just want to write a book to give back. But what has it done for you specifically? If you were able to put your heart into the day that the book came out, it gave me an identity, gave me confidence, gave me opportunity. What did it really do for you?
It helped me to claim my space in the marketplace as a book coach. I had not really claimed that fully until I published a book that, was all about, it was the beginnings of my method, and I mean, as I said, I still use a lot of, all of those same principles. I maybe have added a few tweaks here or there, but it's what's made me confident to say, yeah, I'm a book coach. I've written a book. Go grab a copy. And of course, it brings people kind of into my world. And I love what you said, Mike, about snapshot, because I think that is right. And I think if we can approach book writing as a thing we do for a season of life, that can be super helpful. A lot of times people say, well, I can't write every day. It's like, that's fine. You don't have to write every day in order to get the benefits of just having written a book one time. And so once you actually just suck it up, and write the first draft, if you can get the first draft together, you said 75%. I think that's a great target for any of us. Get it 75% of the way written. At that point, it's inevitable, right? You're going to be able to revise it. You're going to be able to bring in an editor to help, get it to the next level and get it to publishable quality. And it's only really after you publish the book that you start to see, okay, when I apply for speaking gigs, I'm getting more yeses. When I reach out to podcasts, I'm getting more yeses there. Clients are reading my book before they reach out to me. I still get emails, because my email is listed in the book, from people who say, I just finished reading your book. How can I work with you? Still,
It,
to this day, like I got one on Monday. So
it's a 10-year-old asset. That's what it is. This is an asset for life. I'm glad you brought that up.
because
Somebody
you
reading
did
your
it
book.
one time, got it done. Now you can market it and you'll reap the benefits for as long as you still have that book out there.
Oh, and that kind of segues into the call to actions. What do you recommend? Because I always tell people they have to have at least, this is what I say, 3 to 5 call to actions throughout the book. Every 3 chapters, every 4 chapters, a website, a QR code, an offer. And the reason why is if they don't go to your website to get the book, you don't have the data on these people. So your job, I guess, as an entrepreneur is just to serve them at any level. So if they read your book, Amazon's got the data, they have the book. But if there's a way to get in touch with you, whether it is an email or a phone number, now you can continue to nurture that relationship into like a tribe. And so call to actions, what do you recommend?
Yeah, so I'm with you. Every book needs to have at least one call to action, but if it's reasonable that you would put more in, put more in. I like to have one at the very beginning of the book so that when someone comes to the look inside page of Amazon, they can see we position it as a free gift, or a free complimentary resource or something like that. I have the audiobook. I just email the MP3 file of the audiobook as my free gift because it has an inherent value and it's something someone might want at the beginning before they've even started reading the book. Other things that we've done, like workbooks, like printable PDF versions of a workbook
Yep.
can be great. Video resources. We've had even like if you have a YouTube channel, put a QR code, take them to a landing page, grab the email address, and send them a playlist on your YouTube channel. It doesn't have to be something that is exclusive. I think it's a little bit better if it's exclusive, but work with what you've got. So I would say at the very beginning of the book, after the chapter 1, kind of early on in the book, because even people who want to finish your book sometimes won't finish reading your book. So put one early on in the content. And definitely at the end of the book, have some sort of call to action. I would recommend QR codes these days because link clicks have gotten difficult. We used to just be able to click links in the Amazon look inside. They've disabled that in the last, I don't know, year or so. But now we're putting QR codes on everything because QR codes will always work. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I recommend.
Well, do you have any statistics that are worth mentioning? I've always said that, it's mind-blowing that people don't get books done, but there's studies that show that most people aren't even reading books in general. 80% of all high school kids are not reading books outside of school. They never read a book again, right? 50% of college grads never read a book outside of college ever again. So reading is going down, but also the fact that writing, I think, is such an insurmountable idea that many people think that, all right, I'll get started, but they never finish it. And I think there's a study that shows 95% of all books are not read cover to cover, but 87% of Americans or people in the world have always wanted to write a book, yet only 3% ever accomplish it. So have you come across any data that's either promising or scary?
Yeah, so I think I tend not to worry as much about the sort of broad general statistics like that half of college grads don't read a book. Does that really matter to me? Do I need to reach all of college grads? No, I'm probably looking at a certain segment. Now, for you and I, entrepreneurs read. We know that, right? I mean, there's like a culture around reading, exchanging, book suggestions and things like that. And when you go to masterminds, you'll hear people talking about the books that they're reading. So, I don't need to reach every college graduate. I want to reach a certain segment of the market. I know that's a reading market. So I'm not super concerned about that. The things that I'm excited about are the increase in audiobooks.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely the rising trend. Yes.
That is huge because a lot of us, even if we consider ourselves readers, it's a heck of a lot easier to read an audiobook, because you're just listening to it. And that has opened up the number of people who are willing to engage with book length material. They're like, oh, well, if I can listen to it, then I'll dive into that book. So audiobook is a huge opportunity. And just ebooks in general, there are more people who are reading ebooks than ever before. And I think ebooks actually encourage finishing the book because there's less focus on how many pages through this book am I, how many more pages do I have to finish and all that. The Amazon doesn't release its data in quite a way that we can parse it like that. But you can see in your own KDP dashboard, your Amazon dashboard, pages read. And for the folks who start reading my book, when I can see the number of pages read, a lot of them are getting to 85%. Because at the end of the book is where it sort of gets to like, okay, you finished your manuscript. So maybe they drop off because they're like, I haven't finished my manuscript yet. And also my book's short. Like I think for us, when we're writing more prescriptive how-to nonfiction, keeping it short, tight, inspiring is really helpful for those finishing statistics.
Yeah, please, if you can kind of share with our audience what you recommend. Now, I have certain metrics that we share with our clients, and it's basically we look for at least 120 pages. at least 25,000 words, which is about a 2-hour read. The average person reads right around 130 words per minute. I think they speak right around 150 words per minute, or it might be vice versa. I'm not exactly sure, but you're talking about not too much, right? So every chapter, maybe 1,500 words, 6x9. You basically have it in the most popular size book on the planet, right? 6x9s. And so you can get it printed via KDP, Amazon. And so what do you recommend? Am I on the same target with you, or do you recommend something else?
You just described my book exactly.
All right.
Pretty much down to the word count.
Maybe we've been to the same seminars. Maybe we read the same books, right?
I think there's room for people who, yes, exactly. There's room for people who want to include sort of more of a storytelling element. Like if you have more stories or more of your own personal story, it might get more toward the 40, 50,000 word range, which might bump it up around 200, 250 pages. So that's kind of the spectrum that I put it in. But when an author's asking me, well, what do I even aim for when I'm starting? I'm like, aim for 30,000 words. That, that'll probably get you a little bit more than you actually need. You can
Cut
trim
it
some
down.
to, and if you go up to 40, 50,000 words, totally fine. Like let's look at it once you've got it. I know you work with the ghostwriting framework, so y'all probably have a little bit more organization going into the project. I tend to work a little bit more bottom up. Like let's, write through your philosophy, your perspective, your stories, and then let's pick and curate what we want to use in the book. But you can do either way. Just depends on kind of how
Got
your
it.
creative works.
We say that again?
Depends on how your creative process works.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. It seems like you're really doing the coaching on how people can sit down and write their own book directly today, right? That's your baby.
Yep.
Got it.
Yeah.
See, yeah, we don't offer that. Maybe we can create some type of alliance. We basically say, all right, you're an entrepreneur, you're busy, let us handle it. We'll get it done for you. You know what I mean? So that's we it's the done for you service, the coaching and all that aspect we don't have. So maybe there's a way to work together with you. Um, but let's say that somebody out there is putting together a title, subtitle, all that. What's your recommendation? Now, the reason why I bring that up is because people always think they need to start with a title. I say, whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't ever recommend that, because you will get stuck in the rut of trying to marry all your content to that title. My recommendation is, let's get the content down. Once you know your direction in life, get the content down, the lessons combined with stories geared towards the target audience. And then once it's there, now you come up with the title, because then you marry the title to the content, and that's the way to go. But also the synonym that the title should be for your name, right? Start writing a book today equals
Yeah.
Morgan Guest MacDonald, right? So like that's the way it should be, right? So make it as simple as possible for them to remember the title of the book and your name, and they should be synonymous. So that's my recommendation. What do you say?
I agree. I am a fan of titling the book afterward. I know that some people, like I had my dissertation professor in doctoral school, like he would put his title, he would decide on his title and put a sticky note on his desktop, and like he would write that book. So I have met people who can do that. He'd written like 40 books. So he had a system. For those of us when we're kind of like new and a little uncertain, how's this whole process gonna work out? I think that we let ourselves start where it's easier to start. And if it's starting by just say, okay, let me begin with my origin story. For many of us, we've told that story before on a podcast or just a conversation, and we can start with an origin story. We can start with our clients. Who do we help, or who do we want to help? What problems are they having? We can start with some of that material because it's easier to kind of come up with. And then, yeah, write 75 to 90% of the content out. It can be messy. And then at that point, we might start to have ideas about what our title, subtitle might be. Usually we're recommending title is something like 1 to 6 words, short, snappy. You can have big, bold, typography on the book cover, easy to read when it's a thumbnail size. And then that subtitle should be descriptive. Subtitle can be very long. It could be 15 to 40 words. And you want to let people know what they're going to get out of the book. What's the benefit that they're going to get out of the book. And then you don't have to keyword stuff. I'm not a huge fan of keyword stuffing in a subtitle. I don't think it's necessary for Amazon optimization. But I do think that when someone reads the subtitle, they should be like, ooh, that's what I want in life. And that will bring them into the description and the reviews and considering purchasing the book.
Have you noticed any type of trend in regards to that target audience member that that individual wants to write to? What I've noticed is that 98% of the people we worked with are always speaking to their former self. It's always who they used to be, right? Where they started, what they went through, whether it's they went through a divorce or a failed business or grew up in a household that was not favorable to anybody with money, whatever it is, where they started, they want to speak to that person. So the target audience always looks like it's almost like they complete the hero journey, which I want to get into in a little bit about storytelling, but it's always like, all right, let's go back to who I used to be in that ordinary world before I went on this pathway of adventure. So have you noticed the same thing?
I do notice the same thing. That's part of why, personally, I love coaching people through writing their own book, even if we rewrite it later on.
Yeah.
Because we all need help with the writing. I mean, I have, my editorial team go through my writing. So there's nothing wrong with, writing a first draft and then having someone help you rewrite it. It's very normal. But that is why I like to help people write their book, because there's a lot of, just personal satisfaction that comes in reviewing your own story. In You're not necessarily constructing your own hero's journey, but you are realizing that you went on a hero's journey, and in writing through it, you're like, dang, I'm persistent and I persevere and I have overcome trials and obstacles, and I'm proud of myself, like I think a lot of the pride in releasing a book, and maybe when we do ghostwriting interviews, there's a similar kind of realization when you're talking your story and you're seeing, your ghostwriter's reaction, and they're like, wow, you're getting that feedback. By the time you put all that together in a book, you're like, I'm proud of my journey and who I've become. And then you get to release it to the world. So it's just fun. It's a real full circle moment.
Yeah. So you've worked with how many people? Now's the time you can show off with the metrics of how many people you've maybe either worked with or helped them accomplish their dream of writing a book. How many is that?
So our team has published about 220 books. And then we have also coached writers. Like I think, if I think about just how many people read my book, purchased my book, and some percentage have read, we're up around 20,000 people have purchased my book. So that's an amazing feeling. We have probably taken 5,000 to 7,000 people through some sort of writing training, whether it's an introduction to writing a book or, all the way through do-it-yourself, self-publishing training. So yeah,
Wow.
tens of thousands of people. It's amazing.
Now, are you doing a lot virtually? I've realized like when I first started in 2016, I was just finishing my book, but I went to a workshop and I was there and I'm like, oh, this would be cool to do these events and travel around the cities and help people write their books and all that. But now with everything that's available, I feel like I'm making more of an impact and I'm making more connections and helping others from Zoom and Facebook and all this social media. So my heart's going towards that. What do you recommend? What are you doing out there that is that's seeing the greatest impact?
Yeah, and for those of us who work in kind of more of a services client focused capacity, I think we wrestle with this a lot. We do a lot virtually, Zoom. So we do Zoom co-writing sessions and critique workshops, and you meet with a book coach on Zoom and you trade drafts back and forth kind of virtually. We have done a writer's retreat that was really popular. It's a lot of work, but it can be very rewarding. But I think for us, it's, 98% virtual. And, we would like to incorporate a few in-person events as we can in the future.
Yeah, so you're that's I mean, I do want to do one every year, something like that in the future, but it's amazing. People have 2020 was great for people like us, right? Because people are like, "Oh, with Zoom, I guess that's the way of the future. Let's try it." I'm like, "Yes. Yes, dude, let's do Zoom calls."
Absolutely.
Um, okay,
I
so
want to, before we wrap, I do want to, okay, because we put a pin in this. So I do
yeah.
want to make sure we circle back on it. The reviews. How do you get reviews?
Let's go into that because there's a couple other questions I have before we
Okay.
jump off the book talk.
I want to give you the really quick blow by blow, and then I'll give you guys a link to a resource if you want to go deeper on this. But there's a few components that we need. Number one, that lead magnet at the beginning of the book, the QR code, whatever is at the beginning of the book, you want to put it right around the introduction. You want the introduction listed in the table of contents because Amazon will jump to the introduction. So you want that lead magnet. It could be in the introduction. It could be the first, few paragraphs of the introduction. It could be at the end of the introduction. It could be right before it, but right around there. You want a lead magnet. When people go to that web page or scan that QR code, they put in their email address. You want to follow up with delivering the free thing, and then 7 days later asking for a review, and 21 days after that asking for another review. And in the follow-up emails, link to the review page, not the sales page.
The
So that
review page. Good point. Because if
yeah,
they
so
bought it on Amazon, it's a verified purchase already done, right?
yeah.
Or they saw the or they got the audiobook because they clicked the QR code that's in the preview. One of the two. Most likely they got the book, right?
Yep. So that's important. The second thing, double check your keywords and your categories on your ebook. Amazon did a big update in 2023. So if you haven't done that recently, go back. We use Publisher Rocket for keywords and categories. Dave Chesson software, it's great. For keywords, we're looking for high search volume, low competition. You want your search volume above 1,000, your competition ideally below 100 or around 100 for your keywords. You get 7, make sure they're a good 7. You get 3 categories, pick 3 good categories, and then run a free ebook promotion. This requires the ebook to be in KDP Select. I think it's worth it for at least 90 days to put it in at least once. I leave mine in permanently.
Yeah, after you're your bestseller, that's what you do, basically. Or you familiar with this? You know the strategy, I'm assuming, right?
Yes, but we do something different. I like the free because I want the volume. I care more about training the Amazon algorithm. And so I want to pump 2,000 or 3,000 downloads in a 5-day period to train it's essentially a lookalike audience in the Amazon algorithm. And so we'll set it for free. And then if someone wants to make a run for a paid category, we'll set it to 99 cents and we'll do an additional carryover campaign. But we do free first for 5 days. And I actually repeat that every 90 days. That's how I'm getting the reviews.
Got it. Okay. And so my philosophy is let's get the bestseller, and after that, now let's play the other game. So you could change it from KDP regular to KDP Select. Is that right?
Yep, sure.
Oh, that's a great nugget, guys. Take that to the bank. I've not heard that, but that's a smart way to do it. It's great.
It means the ebook is exclusive on Amazon, which means you're not putting the ebook on Kobo, iBooks, Google Play. I think the PDF is still up for grabs because of the language in the terms and conditions. I'm not an attorney, so don't come to me if that doesn't work out. But
Yeah, and attorneys, Amazon, I am not signing off on what she just said. Just say no. I have no idea.
Mike is not complicit in anything that I have
Yeah.
to say or suggest in this interview.
Actually, I didn't even hear what she just said. It's breaking up. Yeah.
I didn't hear that. I missed that. But I do put the ebook in KDP Select, which means that the ebook, the EPUB files, the KPF files are exclusive with Amazon.
Got it. Interesting. Wow, that's great stuff. Yeah, the reviews are huge. There's a couple ways that I've seen people do it, and we're starting to look into reviews even for this podcast. So, yeah, there's just a game to everything, was what I've realized. So,
Wow.
if you can gamify, I mean, Amazon is a program. They have certain processes in place, and they want you to utilize it to its fullest capacity, right? So you keep promoting your book on their platform, therefore making them money. So I think those games are in place for a reason.
Yep. Totally.
Great takeaways there. But outside of your own book, is there one that maybe got you to fall in love with entrepreneurship, kind of taking a step away from the book creation process, going into maybe the life of an entrepreneur that's inside of you? So, is there a book that made you fall in love with this adventure? I always bring up Rich Dad Poor Dad because it's the one that set me free. So, is there one like that for you?
I mean, Rich Dad Poor Dad is a classic. If anyone hasn't read that book, you got to get your hands on Rich Dad Poor Dad real fast.
Yeah, have to.
I love Stephen Pressfield. He has, the War of Art and Turning Pro. I find those books to be very motivational. He has a short, pithy kind of writing style that I think is yeah, just super inspiring and kind of a get up and go kind of book. I also have always really liked I should know to expect this question. Seth Godin is a kind of a similar style. Seth Godin, I remember his book Tribes I read ages
Love
ago.
tribes.
And that really helped me to think about the people that I'm serving. So yeah, if you haven't picked up Pressfield or Godin in a while, they're fantastic.
Seth Godin, if you're out there listening, I once, not too long ago, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, maybe. Yeah, right around there. I sent out an email blast to people like, hey, we're offering this new service. And I had his email. And he didn't know me. I didn't know really him other than the books I read. So I said, hey, we'd love to help you out if you ever need anything. It was just a mass email blast. His response to me, do better, Mike. Do better, Mike, from Seth Godin. Seth, you changed my life. This is the answer you give me? Come on. Because obviously he doesn't like, I guess, the email blast marketing. I don't know. But anyway, it did hurt for about 5 minutes, just so you know.
But hey, you got a response from Seth Godin. So
I
that's
know.
something.
I saved it. I've made a
You got him to
screenshot. I sent it
open
to all
the
my friends.
email and hit reply. You got him to take 2 actions on an email.
He
That's
opened
amazing.
it and replied. That's all I needed, Seth. I win. You know,
Exactly.
it's better than just unsubscribe, right? Whenever you send a girl like, hey, do you want to go out? And she at least opens and responds to it. That's way better than just not answering at all. So that's the way I look at it. Anyways, is there any other recommendation once the book comes out? What do you recommend they do first with it? And if there's any last question I have for you is, what have you seen in these people? Do they stand taller? Do they speak with more conviction? Do they go on to create that business now that they have a book? So I guess number one, what do you recommend and what have you seen?
Yeah, so especially for entrepreneurial minded folks, podcasts have been such the perfect pairing for authors. And we've really seen that, over the last, I would even say 10 years, just like this authors and podcasters are kind of a perfect match. And most of the podcasts that I reach out to, when they realize I have a book, they feel like, okay, the conversation is going to go smoothly because this person has frameworks, philosophies, stories that they can bring to the interview. So get out there, get on a bunch of podcasts. We have recently, this is a recent one, so I haven't, it's not like tried and tested over years, but it's tried and tested over months, is a new site called Podmatch,
Oh yeah.
Podmatch. It's new to us, maybe not new to other folks, but our authors have had really good success with getting matched on podcasts through Podmatch. And yeah, once people publish a book, I think people are often surprised at the positive feedback they get from family, friends, colleagues, folks coming out of the woodwork. Everyone's really nervous. There's a lot of pent up energy when you're releasing a book. What if they hate it? What if they all find out I'm a fraud? What if no one reads it? And people are often really happily surprised at how much, just positive, encouraging outreach that they get from people they haven't talked to in a really long time. So that's always fun. And yeah, there's that sense of real fulfillment. Finishing a project like a book is, for many of us, it's been on our bucket list for a long time. And when we finally just, as I sort of said earlier, you kind of suck it up and do the whatever it's going to be, 40 hours, 80 hours, 120 hours, whatever it ends up being for you, doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, you're going to have a book that you will be proud of for the rest of your life. And you might write more books, and that will be great. But getting the first one out is the first major milestone. So just a lot of real like self-satisfaction that's lasting. There's a self-satisfaction when you put out a Facebook post or an Instagram post or whatever. You're like, hey, I did the thing. It's a flash in the pan and it's gone. But when you do a big project like a book project, that self-satisfaction really has a long tail to it. And I think that adds to your overall happiness and in life.
Love it. All right. Really big nerd question. Everybody, you probably will tune out as soon as you hear this question, but what font do you use? That is a good question for us book nerds. But I have three that I lean in on for our team. Sanskrit text. I love Sanskrit, but it's not a common font on our computer, so it gets a little bit difficult whenever you put it on Amazon. So sometimes there's an issue for other people reading it. Times New Roman is my go-to, especially if it's a wordy book because it's a smaller font, looks clean. But Arial, if you want to get more pages out of less words. So, what do you recommend?
Oh, this is terrible. I have not been involved in the formatting of books. I just asked, my team to do it.
Yeah, we were just
No,
having a conversation with this last week, and I'm like, yeah, I haven't thought about it in a long time, but that's a question I get from my clients. I'm like, just talk to the project manager, Ashley. She'll handle it.
I feel like we used Garamond for a while. I don't know if it's still available in the Adobe suite the same way that it was.
Mm,
And in a lot of well, I don't know if I use this for the book as much, but like Lato is a sans serif that I like a lot.
uh,
Um, Again, I'd have to double check with my book designer if we actually use that in a book itself. But usually, we're thinking serif or sans serif, so I'll help with like the high level stuff. Like serif has that more traditional weight. Sans serif is a little bit more modern and light. So,
yeah, I wanted to ask you because I don't get to have these conversations with anybody on the outside of my company. So, thanks for indulging me a little bit. All right.
absolutely.
Your website, social media is the best. What's the best way to get in touch with you? I would assume your website, or just pick up your book, obviously. So, what do you
Absolutely.
recommend?
So yeah, the book is Start Writing Your Book Today. Feel free to get a copy for yourself or for a friend as a taunt if they've been talking about writing a book for a long time. The website is paperravenbooks.com. You can find me on socials. Usually I am Morgan Guest MacDonald. So if you type in the whole name, I'm usually the only Morgan Guest MacDonald on the socials. And yeah, a resource for you guys if you want to check out some of the things I was talking about, like with the keywords and the categories and how we think about the publishing process with Amazon optimization embedded in that. You can go to paperravenbooks.com/ready. READY ready. And that'll get you hooked in for it's our full self-publishing guide, which I'm sure, Mike, you already give folks a good overview of the self-publishing process. But we have a few pieces in there that speak specifically to kind of the reader magnets and the keywords and the categories that I was mentioning.
I'll check that out. I'm interested. So, yeah, what she said about the categories and the ranks and all that, some of the things that I don't even like touch on. So that's a great resource, guys, if you want to take a look at it. And because we're all about, using the book as a lead magnet on your own website within your own CRM. And so I'm always learning when I get around people like us, right? There's always these new tricks and new strategies, and everybody has their own system. So fascinating stuff. But anyways, social media, what's your best uh, platform?
I still hang out on Facebook. I guess I'm a geriatric millennial because I'm still on Facebook. I think the handle is Morgan G Mac on Facebook.
Good deal. So look her up. But Paper Raven Books. Where'd the name Raven come from? What's it in regards to?
Well, I wanted an animal, and ravens are, mysterious and connected to wisdom and death and, all sorts of things. And I was looking for kind of an adjective that would make sense with ravens. I actually read the dictionary and just like tried a whole bunch of different like pairings with raven, and felt like paper raven sort of made you think about maybe wise books.
Yeah, mysterious and wise. That's a good way to look at it. Yeah. Interesting. Anyways, Paper Raven Books and Morgan Gist MacDonald. I say that with an enunciation because I messed up on the pre-recording, so I want to make sure I
Thank
get that spot on. But Morgan, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. It's been so fun. And yeah, I'm sure we'll do many fun things together in the future too. So thank you. And thanks for everyone listening.
Absolutely. Guys, her book, Start Writing Your Book Today. Check it out on Amazon and make sure you leave a review. And remember, $1 million book will lead to $1 million life. Right on.